Hey all, my name is Sasha Weiss. I'm a sophomore CS student at Northwestern University, computer science, and this marks the conclusion of my first quarter in Delta Lab. So some of the project I'm working on is entitled Context-Aware MicroReminders. I inherited it from Shauna Azria. She was working on it for a couple of quarters, and we're sort of evolving from there. Some of the motivation around this project, reminders apps exist, but they have flaws. Right, so those flaws sort of come up in two big areas: how they remind people, and the types of tasks that they support. So something like a Google Keep, it's great for taking quick notes, but the reminding is limited to time and to geolocation. And oftentimes the context you want to be reminded of, the context you want to be in when you're reminded of something is more complex than that. Maybe it's a combination of time and location, or maybe there are other factors involved. And even within that, geolocation isn't all that helpful for day-to-day tasks that you would complete in the home, since it's not specific enough to catch rooms. GPS isn't that good. For example, if I wanted to get laundry done, and I had decided to break that down into a couple of tasks, I wanted to separate it into lights and darks, put it in the washer downstairs, and then when that's done, bring it upstairs and fold it. So each of those might require a different context for reminding. Lights and darks, that could be when I'm in my room and when I'm not doing anything. But bringing it downstairs to the washer could be when I'm leaving my room, when I'm already headed down the stairs, and then bringing it back upstairs, maybe when I walk into my house, for example. And reminder systems right now don't support that kind of multi-step tasking. You can either be reminded once of an entire checklist of things, or you can be reminded of individual notes that you have to create those notes individually, and they're not linked, they're not associated with each other, and that's not great. So my big goal for this quarter was to get a handle on iOS development and to build out some tech that I was able to use at the end of this quarter, and that I will be able to use going forward in future quarters to answer a couple of big research questions. First of those being, how do people complete tasks? Do they do tasks all at once? Do they sort of start something and then power through and finish it? Or do they break it up into what I've called micro-tasks, individual discrete little steps, each of which maybe with their own context, and that they want to do at different times? And does that paradigm change with the nature of the task? And if so, what are some of those classes? Another big question, and a particularly big one in crowdsourcing in general, is when is it good to notify people? Previous research has shown that interrupting somebody while they're in the middle of something can be very disruptive, and importantly, it can make it very difficult for them to sort of get back into their groove. At the same time, if you're able to catch people with dead space in their routines, they can be very effective at getting small tasks done. So something I'm very interested in is finding out where are those dead spots. How do we decide if we're in a dead spot, and once we've done that, how do we target somebody with a notification so they get something done? So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the system that I built over this quarter. Currently, the way it works is it'll ask you for a task, for something you want to get done. It'll ask you then to decompose that task into a series of subtasks. Each of those tasks associated with a location. And the way we're doing location for sort of in-the-home, day-to-day tasks, which is what we're focused on right now, are beacons. So these guys right here. These are Estimo beacons. They conform to the iBeacon protocol. So essentially the way they work is you put them in a location, you put them on an object, and when you go close to it, it'll notify your device that you're in range of this beacon. So we're using them as proxies for entering a room, exiting a room, being close to an object. That's our location context right now, and they work really nicely in an indoor setting. So each of those, when it'll ask you for tasks and then you want to get done, it'll ask you for subtasks, and for each of those subtasks, it'll ask you to pick a beacon, a location. And what we've been doing is we've been going and taking a couple of these beacons, like 3 beacons per user, and putting them around the user's house, around their environment, so that they are able to have a couple of contexts within their apartment, within their home, in which to be reminded of tasks. So the next thing I'd like to do now that I've talked about the system a little bit is give you a demo, show you what it looks like, show you how it functions. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to switch over to a mobile camera, and I'm going to set up some beacons in my own dorm, and I'll sort of walk you through what the whole process of creating a task, being notified looks like. Great, so we've created our task to disassemble a bike. So what we're going to do now is I'm down the hall, but we're going to go
But another like.
Down to my Sweet Lounge, where I've placed a beacon that I associated with the task to disassemble the bike. And what we'll see is when I go into the Sweet Lounge, I will get a notification telling me to do just that. So here we are. So what I've done is I've put a beacon in our Sweet Lounge. You can see there's the bike there. And you can see on the app we just got a notification from the app or on our phone telling us to disassemble the bike. Now what we can do now is we can either snooze the notification so that the next time we leave and come back it will throw that same notification again, so if I'm not obviously in the moment to take that bike apart right now, but or we can say I did take the bike apart and I can mark the task done, which you can do interactively in the notification, or if you open the app from the notification it'll ask you there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is mark that task done, and it vanished. So following building out that tech a little bit to the point where it was what you saw, what I was able to do, I recruited a couple people, just some friends, some people who live in my dorm, another friend who lives off campus, and another friend, fourth friend, who lives off campus. We had 4 users total. And we went to each of their houses and I placed a couple beacons around them, installed the app for them. They're all iOS users. And I asked them to use it for a couple days, and I was tracking the tasks that they created, how they interacted with the notifications, when they entered and exited regions, etc., etc., etc. And at the end of that, I sort of debriefed them, did some exit interviews, and I got a lot of really valuable feedback. And some of the stuff we heard were on failure modes. So what we've learned in the past is that if you throw an overwhelming number of notifications, people will ignore them. They will sort of be desensitized to them, not really pay attention to them. And that can happen with the beacons, especially if you're hovering at the edge of a region. It'll register you as leaving and coming back very frequently, sort of like very rapid fire. And it'll overwhelm your phone. It'll just throw tons of notifications. So we built in a way to prevent that. So if a notification's already been thrown, if it hasn't been interacted with, if it hasn't been snoozed, don't throw it again. Unfortunately, there was a bug in that, and one of our users reported getting hundreds of notifications for the same task to the point where it was sort of unusable. That only happened with one user, fortunately. From the rest of them, what we heard is a big issue was activation energy. It was too much effort to go into the app to put in a task and to put in a task breakdown, pick locations for each of those, just for one task. And part of the reason that speaks to what they wanted to use the app for, and that was not large complex tasks. They wanted to use it for short, quick, very brief micro-reminders, sort of very small momentary tasks, like call your mom. One of my users reported she wanted to remember to call her mom every time she got home. And she didn't feel that necessitated making a task and a breakdown, probably appropriately so. And she said that if there was maybe a widget or some way to more voice notes, image notes, and in addition to text notes, a quicker way to encode that message, she'd be much more likely to use it. And that's sort of feedback we heard across the board. We heard a lot of good things about location, but in particular, people talked about more complex contexts. For example, location and time. If you wanted to target when somebody gets home, say when I am in my room after 9 p.m. People said that might be additionally useful for just sort of improving the specificity of context. And then flexibility. Sort of these are all concepts that sort of fit into the overall concept of flexibility. No two tasks are the same, no two users are the same, and they're not going to accomplish their tasks in the same way. So building in flexibility is going to be really important going forward. Altering the number of microtasks right now, it's hard-coded at 3, which is, in retrospect, not great. Being able to, so that would facilitate a one task item, or one microtask item, so something quick like call your mom, or more complex tasks if you wanted to add microtasks for larger projects. Another aspect of flexibility would be ordering. So right now the microtasks are ordered, but a lot of people said that, one of my users was talking about how he comes home, walking in the front door, it'd be great to get a notification when he walks in the front door of a whole mess of things he needs to do every time he comes home. like lock the door, check the garage, clean the fireplace, stuff like that, that he wanted to get all at once. But the way it was structured, he couldn't because it was ordered, and unless he shoehorned it all into one little micro task, that wasn't going to work. So ordering versus non-ordering, flexibility in the number of micro reminders or micro tasks, flexibility in the contexts themselves, and then lowering activation energy. Those are some of the big pieces of feedback we got from users. So thank you for watching. That was my first quarter in Delta Lab. I'm building out MicroReminders. So sort of to recap, big feedback we got was flexibility is really important in terms of how to structure tasks, when to complete tasks, and how to enter tasks. And so that'll be the tech focus going forward. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and see you next quarter.